The following is a production of UNO Television for KYNE TV. Consider This with Carol Schrader, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome to UNO. Consider this. In spite of all we've done to try to educate our children, they are still in danger of dying at the hands of a drunk driver, or they may even become a drunk driver. My guest today will talk about that and other issues involving drunk driving, DUI, DWI, whatever you want to call it. Diane Reby is Executive Director of Project Extra Mile, and she's also on the national board, as I understand it, for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Lieutenant John Kuser is with the Sarpy County Sheriff's Department, has been keeping up on this issue and unfortunately has probably seen some of the things that come of it. Also with us today is John Natz. He's principal at Creighton Prep. And again, you have also seen how it's negatively touched the lives of the young people of our community. And I think that that's one of the things that gets me the most. I have covered so many stories where I've physically gone out on the scene, as you have, John, seen what drunk driving has done. And we are so concerned about keeping our young and our best and our brightest in this community. Maybe we need to consider keeping them alive in this community. Diane, what is Project Extra Mile first, which is getting a lot more notoriety and is becoming a lot more visible?
We're a community coalition of organizations and individuals committed to preventing underage drinking, to creating a community consensus that clearly states that underage alcohol use is illegal, unhealthy, and unacceptable.
And so what are some of the groups in it? Obviously, we've got people from schools, sheriff's departments.
Exactly. Law enforcement, both public and private schools. Our board president is from Employee Assistance Program. We have just a wide range of people. The Chamber of Commerce, Goal 6, those folks have been involved. We have emergency nurses involved. We have other prevention and safety organizations. So it's just a wide range of individuals.
And everybody feel free to pipe in.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a conversation. John and John, Lieutenant and John, maybe I'll make it easier. You know, kids, you know, this is the season that scares me the most, besides maybe football season. I don't know, there's something about football Friday nights or whatever. Why is this a good time for Project Extra Mile and other groups to really put the push on graduation, proms?
From my point of view, Carol, this is the prom season and the graduation season are big times for celebration, and unfortunately many of our young people today feel that the only way that they can celebrate is with the help of alcohol or with drugs, and so that's very difficult as adults, and I know in talking with other high school administrators, this is the time between April and June 1st that we all, every time the phone rings at home late at night, we're very concerned that we're going to get a call from someone saying that one of our students has been involved in an accident.
Lieutenant, we as parents, we fear. Fortunately, my son does not have a driver's license, and I am, you know, we're just dealing with zits, and he thinks that's the end of the world. And try explaining, you know, to a young, invincible human being that happens to be in a car or in control of a car. It's real hard to get across, isn't it?
It's hard to get across, and sometimes we're looked at as, you know, coming and talking with the kids, and all we're, you know, going to try and do is these scare tactics. This is what can happen to you, you know, if you get involved in drinking and driving, and
and you're the Grinch.
Yes, we're
I mean,
the bearer of bad tidings. That's correct. One thing though that from a law enforcement standpoint, and being involved also with Project Extra Mile, is that this is the first time I've been involved in a coalition that when I go to a meeting, I sit down and we have people from the schools, from businesses, from other organizations that all have a similar concern, maybe not the exact agenda, each one might be going a little bit different direction, but it's the first time I've been involved in a coalition that we bring all of us together and we seem to be able to examine different areas of each other's different concerns. And it seems that we get a little bit more better direction of which way to go. We have some school kids come in and talk with us from the law enforcement, business people. And so getting those different directions being brought together, it's helped me, it's educated me in seeing things a little bit different.
I think I can say, because you may not want to, that oftentimes these groups get to be very political and their own agenda becomes supreme to other people's. I don't know, there's something just very part of the human condition, politics with a small p, but you feel it is moving forward. The thing that intrigues me is that, I mean, when I grew up, and I hate to say that, and my son hates when I say that, there was drinking, but it wasn't as widespread, I don't think. Even my good Catholic school compatriots, some of them drank, and I'm sure some of them got very drunk, and some of them smoked, but the drugs weren't as pervasive. This was just before the 70s curve, late 60s, early 70s, and but it is now not acceptable, but the kids sound like, well, they drink. It's kind of like, well, I don't smoke, but they smoke. Not a big deal. Am I reading this wrong?
I don't think so.
There seems to be an acceptance, in a sense, more, I don't know.
There's too often, Carol, a resignation on the part of parents and adults in the community, which that then attitude is embraced by children. They really do live what they learn, and they learn that first at home, and then they learn it in their community. And as a community, we've not said very clearly, here's our expectation. Our expectation is if you're under 21, we don't want you to drink, period.
Wait a minute. When I was younger, it seemed to me, and as I was growing up, that adults drank, maybe not consumed more total alcohol, but it was more common to see parents that had a beer at night. I mean, think of I grew up towards South Omaha, and there was a bar in every corner, and people were there every afternoon. These weren't the kid, the young career people and the young people. These were the working people of South Omaha that would go there and have a beer or two after work. Seems to me there are more parents that just don't drink at all, or very seldom drink. Could I be reading that wrong? So I don't know if is it the acceptance of the problem or just the acceptance of drinking in their lives?
That's I guess an answer I don't necessarily have, but there still is an attitude among parents, whether it's their children or someone else's children, that our children are going to drink, and they're somewhat grasping for an immunity that if they drink, if they just don't drive, which ought not to be the perception, ought not to be the attitude that a parent takes, because we know those kids grow up to ride with drinking drivers at a higher rate, ride with drinking drivers, become drinking drivers themselves and have more alcohol problems. So the message needs to be very clear to them.
I've been in education for 24 years, and to be real honest, I don't think that kids have changed very much over that time. They still, when adults draw that line in the sand, there are kids that are going to go up to that line, there are kids that are going to step on the line, kids that are going to step over the line. So I don't think it's so much a change from the student's point of view, but it seems to be that given the fact that we live in a society where there are both parents are working, and both my wife and I work, and we come home and we're both dead tired, and the kids wear you down, and I think there's a certain bit of acceptance, maybe not acceptance, but a resignation that, you know what, just do what you want to do because I'm tired, or the fact that the parents, for whatever reason, don't get involved in their sons and daughters' lives like they should. I think it's a good idea for example, for parents when their sons and daughters are out to remain awake until they come home at night to check on them. I do that with I have 2 teenage sons, and sometimes I would like nothing better than to just crash before they come home. But I know that's an expectation that when they come home that they're going to have to meet me, and they're going to have to talk with me, and they're going to have to answer some questions. I don't interrogate them, but I just, how was your evening, that sort of a thing. And I think that's very important nowadays, and I don't think parents should be afraid that if their sons or daughters tell them that they're going to be going out to someone's house, to not be afraid to pick up the phone and to call that house and just say, my name is so-and-so, my son or daughter is coming over to your place, are you going to be home?
Well, you brought up like what I consider like the really best deal. In fact, I had a fantasy once that, gee, when my son was old enough, maybe there would be a group of parents that, and I think they have a group like this in Lincoln, where you sort of sign on to a contract that if your kids run around with my kids and my kids run around with your kids, we will, feel free to call the houses and call around, that if our kid isn't home, that we can feel free to call you and you will go out with us. And, you know, I mean, that they just know. I mean, my mother came after me once, and boy, that slowed things down. And I wasn't even a drinker. But, I mean, and I knew my curfews were curfews.
At Creighton Prep, we have what we call a Safe Homes program. At the beginning of each year, parents are allowed to sign off on a contract that says, you know, there will be no alcohol served to minors in my home. And then in our directory, our student directory, the students who are members of the Safe Homes, we put a little asterisk next to their names. And so parents know that if, for example, if my son is going over to someone's house and it's a prep student, I can look in the directory and I see the asterisk so that they signed off on that. Now,
If they're really there.
if they're really
So pick
there,
up the phone.
right, that's
That's
correct. And
excellent.
most of the time they are, and sometimes, unfortunately, you know, they're not.
Lieutenant, when you get involved in a situation, or one of your men does, where you have to, they have to pay a visit that somebody's hurt or injured or even worse, there has got to be no worse duty other than being the parent themselves.
Yeah, it's a worse call. I think it's all part of the job, as they say, but it's absolutely the worst part of the job is having to do that. I've had to do it several times, and there's just no. They can send you to a class and say this is what you should do, how you make the approach, and speak with parents, etc. If there's something, either their child has been involved in an accident and or the worst, killed in an accident. You can take the classes, but then having to do that, how do you approach a parent, and you're on their porch, they answer the door, it's late at night, early in the morning, and you say, can I come in, I need to talk with you, and the thoughts that go through their head. Sitting down and then actually having to say what has happened. It's sheer panic and fear. It's something that I think if you had to do or be a part of or go along and see what that fear and panic does to a parent, and to watch that, it's devastating. It's one of the worst to tell someone that their child is either very critically hurt or injured terribly.
Or for a child to be, I mean, you'll never be able to replicate that on a video cassette or a computer game, that the look on the face and the sheer and the feeling. I mean, it's I would never want to put someone through having to be videotaped. Of course you wouldn't in a time like that, but it's too bad we all can't, or the children, young people, and young adults can't see that.
You said something, though, Carol, earlier, that with the permissiveness of parents. I grew up in the 70s, and naturally there are parents that also grew up in the 70s, and that was it was an interesting time, to say the least, and the permissiveness that there was. Let me just tell you one quick story. It was this, and we're talking about this time of year, yes, this time of year, but it's throughout the year. On New Year's Eve this year, I responded to a call that one of my deputies was en route to. When he got there, it was a business, and it had a large garage area. And when he got there, he saw all kinds of kids running from the business. And there was something like 250 kids there. You know, alcohol is involved in driving, but other things can also happen. So I heard this, and I went down there, and it was a rescue call. And what had happened is there was kegs there. There was a lot of other alcohol there. It was a party that was condoned by the parents of the young man that was having the party. Okay? Their feeling is, well, they're all in one spot, then we can be there.
Oh, they're safe. Yeah, I mean, at least
Right.
we can. Yeah.
Well, what had happened is it was kind of a freak accident. But what had happened is the young lady went in and was using the restroom, and a young man was dancing on top of a false ceiling. Actually fell through the ceiling and fell onto her. Well, she was injured quite badly. Had some paralysis result from this. And while it's not a driving accident, it's where alcohol was involved. She was 19, the young man that fell on her was 20, and now here's a man who has a business whose son was having this party, is now going to have to be responsible for this. But then we're there trying to get a hold of the father that owns the business, can't do that, and here we have the 20-year-old son. And a young lady that's very critically injured. We go to the hospital, finish that call. We respond to a personal injury accident just near, probably within a mile of the hospital. A young man had rear-ended another car. 3 people go to the hospital there. He was 16, and we had learned that he had left that same party that we were at earlier and was driving home when he rear-ended this car. So there's really 2 tragics, I believe 4 people at the hospital based on one incident of maybe innocent. They feel it's an innocent party, but where's the responsibility there? That's tremendous. Liability.
Where do adults fall into this? You said permissiveness, but I keep seeing things I'm hearing out of Council Bluffs. They're really cracking down. Assistant City Attorney Steve Palmer, they're really cracking down on people who allow parties in their home. I'm talking adults for minors. You just announced the results of a sting operation.
Yes, we did a compliance check effort where we had law enforcement working with young people carrying their own valid driver's license indicating they were under 21, going into a business, a license outlet.
So these weren't fake IDs?
No, these were not fake IDs, and these kids were honest honest about their age when the clerk would ask. The good news is last year in February '97 we had 41% of those businesses checked actually sold to the minors. This time we had just over 15% selling to the minors, so we had a nice reduction. But to sustain that, we have to keep that enforcement level high. I think the lieutenant would agree with that. We can't sit and rest on our laurels. That's only part of the problem. I know that gets a lot of attention, but the other part of it is the parental involvement and the older friends and family members who provide alcohol and somehow believe that they can control that drinking situation.
That still amazes me, 15%. If you extrapolate that out to a Friday night in the Omaha Metro, how many kids is that could be drinking?
But like
not to mention the adults that are buying.
Well, like Diane said, that was a good number for us.
Yes, that's sad. It was a good
even though
number.
15% is a good number. And the other amazing number on that is when we've done those in the past, there are people that look at that, note the age, and might even mention, well, like in one case they said, well, this is your lucky day. Here you go anyway. And then sell it to them knowing their age. And that was about 20 or 25% of that 40% that actually knew the age and would go ahead and do that.
John, you've got pretty bright kids at Creighton Prep. I mean, make no bones about it, it's a college prep school with an incredible reputation. It's not the easiest place to get into. Some of these kids come from super deluxe families, and I mean, they come from across the board, but I mean, I would say some higher socioeconomic skew and very bright kids, and yet you've had, what in your teaching experience, I don't know if it's just been a prep, a couple dozen kids affected by drugs and alcohol.
I've been in this business 24 years at 3 different Catholic schools, and in that time I've had, I believe it's 12 students who have died because of drug or alcohol-related accidents. And there's really nothing worse. I can't even imagine what law enforcement has to do when they have to go up to the house and to tell the parents that their son or daughter has been critically injured or killed in an alcohol or drug-related accident. But in the school, it's just when it just the whole school just goes down to bare bones. You're where that student would sit in class. Now that seat is empty, so that's a reminder. Of course, being in a Catholic school with attached to different churches, there's always the funeral then that our parents and our students and our staff attend, and that's always a very somber and just an unbelievable event as well. And it amazes me. I remember the first time that we lost a student. I thought I was pretty naive back then, that, well, this is going to be it. The kids are going to learn, and the parents are going to learn, and this will never happen again. These young people have not died in vain. Well, that happened again and again and again, and in two of the incidents, there were 2 that were killed in the same accident. So 4 of the 12 were killed in 2 different accidents. So it's a tragic circumstances.
And that happened at Burke High. They had a multiple death, and then it was maybe a year or so later. And kids are so strict. I remember when I was in high school, a kid died just in a motorcycle accident. I mean, they're so vulnerable. You know, kids are invincible, and it is incredible to them that this can happen, and they are cut to the quick and affected for a long time. And yet, the thing about kids is that they easily.
Adolescents are high risk takers. I mean, just by their very nature, and we don't want that to change.
No.
Except we want them to learn to take those risks in appropriate measure so that they can get to adulthood. But I think more alarming than the fact that the kids didn't learn, as a community have we learned? And what have we done from that time so that we don't just get comfortable saying the Burke High crash, the Ralston High crash, and begin to now refer to these multiple fatality crashes by the name of their high school?
Well, then we get back to what we were talking about before, is that, I see all these post-prom parties and the graduation parties and these parents going to great lengths to do these great things. And I wonder, this may be a good thing. I don't know. I haven't reached that. I haven't really viewed one except from reporting. I'm thinking, what's the rest of the year?
That's so.
And not I laud them. I applaud them. I have been to some. They are wonderful. But I
think that the key is education and enforcement, and even on a school-wide basis. In our student handbook, we have a complete page that outlines what the consequences are if you sell, if you host a party where there's alcohol, if you use, or if you just smoke cigarettes. And it's an excellent page in our handbook that pretty much tells the student and the parent and the administrator and the teachers that if this is what you do, here are the consequences for that action. Along with that, at PrEP, we're very fortunate to have a very active parent group called our parent board, and on the parent board is an awareness, what they call the Parent Awareness Committee, and they meet every month, and they put out a newsletter to all of our parents on alcohol and drug abuse, and they just put different articles in there, and just to remind parents that this is something that happens. It's not something that only happens to the other kid, but it can happen to their son or daughter, and that it can happen at PrEP as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I guess I would, following up with the prom graduation and the post-prom parties, that is a laudable effort, but if you could just plead with those parents to tell them that does not provide immunity for the rest of the year, and if they would take even a portion of the energy that they use during that time and spread it out and get involved so that they can make those changes and they're more long-lasting, that would just be a critical point to get across to them.
If you could, whether you sit with the Project Extra Mile group or whatever, or just even on a personal note, if you had like 2 things that could happen tomorrow other than kids would stop drinking, to help, in your mind, help the problem along, what would that be? Let's go down the line.
I guess I would say first and foremost that we have parents and families that embrace traditions that further solidify the foundation that children have. So they're there for their children, and that's their primary focus as a parent, is to be there for their kids.
Maybe even when they have gotten in trouble?
Absolutely, absolutely. Secondly, I would urge us as community members to be advocates. To know that, as Lori Lieber says, you don't blame fish for dying in polluted waters. It's not just our children's problem, it's ours. And so if we can be advocates for change and work together and not work against each other, that ought to help everyone in the end.
John?
Well, you know, Diane's going to keep us motivated throughout the years, because she always does. But, you know, law enforcement's taking a little bit different look at it. You know, before, at one point in time, we used to, just because of the call load and everything else, we would go to these parties and break them up, have everybody leave, and that was about it. Well, now we have a zero tolerance. We're going to take some kind of action. Something is going to happen to parents, to the kids, whatever. It's not going to be acceptable anymore. And it is an effort, like on the prom parties, where law enforcement is starting to get a little bit active. I'm proud of our union, the FOP. We were one of the first police agencies in the area to sponsor or help the schools with this by donating some of our funds to this. We just want to see that also. We don't want to have to do that. So I'd like to see actually a little bit more involvement, and if we could, with the law enforcement, do those.
John?
I would say that these young people are getting this alcohol from somewhere. And as Diana said, the sting operation that they did on the compliance checks, I would really like to see our politicians make some tougher rules for people who sell to minors. That would be, I think, a key. And secondly, would be to continue the education of parents, and to, given today's society, to just teach them some strategies that they could use in helping raise their children concerning this particular problem.
We have about 30 seconds left, and I want to ask Diana a quick question. If you are a parent out there who needs support in knowing how to handle this or suspects, is there someone they can call?
Well, they can certainly call our office, 231-4305, and we can certainly connect them. If we don't have information they need, we'd be happy to connect them. That's part of what we do as a community coalition. So I would be happy to talk with them.
So parents don't have to be alone.
Absolutely.
And I think they feel like that sometimes, because some are trying very hard.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you very much,
Thanks.
Diane Ribby, Dr. Lieutenant John
That's fine.
Gooser, and John Nance for being with us today. It's an important subject, 365-day-a-year subject. And thank you for joining us on Consider This.